Now, I'm not here to crap on China, but we have to set the record straight. The CCP has jumped on the fact that there's been a lot of unrest in America. So much so that not only my own Chinese family, but a lot of my subscribers who are married to Chinese women or Chinese men are contacting me to say that their Chinese spouses are now so scared of living in America that they want to go back to China. It's quite a funny situation, and I really want to put this into perspective for you. In the Western world, we have a very transparent press. In other words, if something happens, especially if it's something bad, the press jumps on it because, bad news sells. It's something interesting. Tragedy sells. So when you have a protest and people are tearing down monuments or going out on the streets and setting things on fire, etc., you bet your bottom dollar that every news agency will be out there filming it, trumping it up, making it sound like something big and, scary, and that's what sells. Now, in China, it's the opposite. When something bad, something scary happens, what happens is the government jumps in immediately to quash any kind of coverage. Whether it be citizen coverage, they will start to ban posts. If someone posts a video of something online, I've actually witnessed this myself. It's happened to me. When there was an explosion in a wet market in the Xinjiang region of China, a subscriber of mine who was living there, this is while I was in China, sent me photos as it was happening. All right? I tried to forward those photos on to other people and they wouldn't arrive. I sent some to C-Milk. I was like, hey, look what's going on here. And he said, what? I can't see what you're talking about. So I took the image of this market that had just been blown up and I processed it. I made it all pink and green and, stuff like that, made it different, and then sent it, and then he could see it. You see, they've got very sophisticated algorithms and systems that prevent the spread of any news, video footage, or photos that they do not want to be sent. They will arrest people who try to talk about sensitive issues and sensitive things that have happened. And of course, you may not report on anything that might make the Chinese government look bad or society in general look unharmonious, or unsafe. This is the big difference. You see, here in the United States, you have freedom of press. And that freedom sometimes, in fact all the time, allows them to also embellish a lot. Because you're trying to sell a product at the end of the day. So the more sensationalist it is, the better it's going to do. So what happens is you get this image of a country on fire. And it's ridiculous because here I am sitting in Southern California and I travel every day to go to and from our little office that C-Milk and I do our editing and our filming and stuff in. I have not seen any fires. I've not seen any property damage. I've not seen any defunding of the police. I still see the police out there doing their job, pulling people over, keeping the law and order, helping people in need. I see the firefighters putting out fires. I see society working perfectly as I would expect it to work in a civilized country. So I'd like to use myself as an example. Let's just say America suddenly adopted China's method of suppressing the news. I would think that everything was fine and safe and great. In fact, I'd be telling everyone, hey, you better come right here to where I am now. It's the safest place in the world because I don't see any destruction. I don't see any protests. I don't see any arson. I don't see any of this nonsense that's going on. And I wouldn't know about it unless the press was shoving it down my throat all the time. So you see, that's why when people live in China, they believe it's the safest place in the world. And that's because all the bad things happening around them are shielded away from them. And so they don't get to see it and they don't seem to realize. So I just wanted to put some perspective out there. Every country has issues. The country I grew up in, South Africa, is a minefield of issues. It's like I could go on about it all day. There's a reason I don't live there, and there's a reason why I suggest nobody lives there. But let's go and talk about some of the things I experienced firsthand in China that might change a little bit of your perspective, especially those who think that it's a utopia of safety. I should probably start with the harshest stuff. I've seen a lot of death in China. Now this is usually down to bad driving. I've done a lot of trips on my motorcycle through China and especially the rural parts. And pretty much every long trip I did, I would see at least 1 or 2 fatalities, usually involving cyclists or motorcycle riders, where a truck has driven them over or a car has hit them or whatever. It's incredibly unsafe, especially in the rural areas. And this is due to the fact that most people just do not pay attention and do not follow the rules. And I'm talking about the cyclists, the motorcyclists, and the car people. So everybody's just doing their own thing. Nobody's paying attention, and you get a lot of fatalities as a result. Okay, I've seen someone stabbed before at an ATM when I was in a very crowded part of Shenzhen. I went to the police. I don't know if anything actually happened, but I did see somebody get stabbed. So, you know, these kind of things do happen. I mean, obviously, if anyone's got WeChat, you constantly see videos that are shared of people getting stabbed or, you know, being hacked up with machetes and stuff. This stuff does happen in China, but it's always, you know, suppressed. But, you know, there is crime, just like anywhere else. There's mafia. There's all sorts of crap going on. You know, anyway, that's kind of the bad stuff. Let's talk about some of the other things that I've come across personally, okay? Let's talk about theft. That's a big problem in China, especially petty theft, pickpocketing and things like that. I personally have stopped a pickpocket 3 times now in China. The first time I stopped a pickpocket, I was walking down a road and I saw a woman in front of me approaching me. This is about 2008, 2009, thereabouts. She's walking towards me. You know, tons of people, it's a crowded street, and I see a guy behind her with medical tweezers. That's what they use, either medical tweezers or chopsticks. And he had them in her pants pocket, and he was pulling out her cell phone. So, of course, I shouted in Chinese, "Thief, thief," and the guy very...
Chromebooks start fast and stay fast over time. Switch to Chromebook.
Okay, Limu, you said it. Then as I spike it, I'll tell them how Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance, so they only pay for what they need.
Very quickly backed off, and you know, she turned around and noticed her phone was almost out of her pocket, so she kind of grabbed it, and he put his little medical tweezers down his sleeve, looked around and walked off. That's the first time. I stopped another guy. This time I was walking from behind and I saw the guy reaching into someone's pocket, and I shouted at him and, you know, put an end to that as well. I got pickpocketed once. First of all, I stopped someone trying to pickpocket me. I was on a little escalator going down, and a guy behind me reached into my pocket again with chopsticks or something similar, and I felt it. I turned around and swatted his hand away, and I was like, what the hell, you know? Another one, of course, the time I actually got pickpocketed, I was studying Chinese, and I bought a very expensive electronic dictionary. I was very proud of it. It's like one of those little, this is before phones had proper translation software and stuff, right? So you'd have to buy an electronic dictionary. So I had this in a little messenger bag type thing that I carried all my stuff in, and it was slightly unzipped, and I know exactly when it happened because I was using it when I was on the Shenzhen metro on the train, and as I was leaving the station, I put it in my bag. I got out of the station, and then I reached to try and get it to translate something, and it was gone. So somebody had pickpocketed it basically as I'd gone up the stairs from the train out of the station. These guys are really good at it. So, there's a lot of theft, a lot of petty theft. Another unfortunate situation is, a friend of mine and myself went out for a night on the town, and we'd get a lot of fake money back then. Things have improved since, I'm not going to lie, as far as fake money is concerned. We used to get a lot of fake money. That's an aside, but he just bought a new phone. It was back in the day when Sony Ericsson made their first camera phone, and so, he'd spent a lot of money on this thing. And as we got out of the taxi, it fell out of his pocket, closed the door, and saw it in the taxi, tried to stop the taxi driver drove off. So we called his phone, taxi driver actually answered it and gave us the runaround. We're like, can we get our phone back? He's like, yeah, I just need to finish my shift type thing. And he's like, come meet me here in the middle of nowhere, out somewhere. We went there, he didn't arrive, he stole the phone. That's, one of a couple of things that went missing inside of taxis. And the problem is, it's hard to find an honest driver, especially in Shenzhen, because all of the taxi drivers are immigrants. So they just come there and they work there, the migrant workers. So they come and work there for a couple of months and then they bugger off to their hometown. So they don't have any roots set down in Shenzhen. So, the chances of you getting something back are fairly slim. It's not to say it doesn't happen, though. There is, of course, another seedier part, which I've experienced too, and these are like hostage situations. I'm in a very unique position. I am the first person to make YouTube videos about China online, and because of this I have a lot of people who were going to China, people that were interested in China would contact me for information, send me emails or whatever. And especially in the beginning when I was a much smaller channel, I used to add everybody personally on my phone, give them my phone number. Hey, you're here in China, let's meet up. I used to meet people up for barbecue and go out and we'd have a good time. Of course, my channel grew too big and I was not able to meet everyone anymore. But during the beginning days, I used to get to know my subscribers very personally. And this happened once where a guy called me in the middle of the night and he was being held hostage at a brothel because he'd gone in for dodgy, he went in for sex basically and ended up not being able to pay. So they were holding him hostage. And so he basically had all his clothes. They had all his clothes. They had all of his stuff. They just gave him his phone so he could phone people to bring money. And I actually ended up having to go bail the guy out, which was the most ridiculous and embarrassing thing for him and me. I don't want to be going in the middle of the night to some random brothel to go and bail out a guy. But this kind of hostage situation, especially you're a foreigner in a foreign land, if you get involved in any kind of shady business, and this goes for anywhere in the world, but I'm saying gambling, prostitution, drugs, things like that, you're at a severe disadvantage, especially in China if you're a foreigner. So, of course, stay away from all these kind of dodgy things and you're going to be pretty much okay. But I'm just saying, like, I've witnessed that kind of thing happen before where the mafia gets involved. And a lot of the scams that happen to foreigners, tea house scam, that kind of thing, it involves this whole mafia thing where they kind of hold you hostage and force you to go to an ATM to draw money and things like that. It's quite common in China. You can watch some of my scams videos to find out more about that. I've interviewed people, etc. There's one thing that I've noticed here in America that shocked me at first, and that is everybody's willingness to help. A couple of times, well, I'll give one example. I was driving my car and there was a car accident right in front of me. Believe it or not, a Chinese woman turned in front of a car that was, it wasn't her right away. It was a red light, but she just turned. I guess she wasn't paying attention, and a car that was coming just smacked into her, and of course it was a fairly big accident. I was the first on the scene. I helped open the door for her, but immediately people stopped their cars on both sides of the road and all came to help. And this to me was it's kind of alien having lived in China for so long, because people don't get involved. Anyway, she was unhurt, everyone was unhurt, and everything was okay. And she was very surprised that I could speak Chinese. And I wasn't surprised that she'd had an accident. Anyway, just from my own experiences in China. The reason I'm bringing this up is I know a Russian woman who was walking in Huajianbei. Now, Huajianbei is the big electronics district in Shenzhen. And she fainted. And this is because she, I don't know, just it was too hot or whatever, but she fainted. And she literally lay there, fainted for God knows how long. But eventually she regained consciousness and got up by herself, but nobody stopped in to help her. And this is quite common in China. Whenever there's some kind of a public distress, somebody can be in a lot of trouble, nobody steps in to help. This is one of the biggest problems. I've made a video specifically about this, saying this is China's biggest societal problem, and this is this unwillingness to help other people. Because unfortunately in China, a lot of the times when people do step in to help, they end up getting the short end of the stick, and they end up getting sued or they end up getting in trouble just by trying to help. So you see, this is a terrible part of living in China, and this always worried me the most about my wife going out by herself or whatever. If something happens to her, if someone attacks her, especially, because I've seen it on the street myself, where a man is literally beating up a woman, I have to step in and stop it physically because nobody else will. And then I get blamed for interfering in domestic problems and have to sit there and explain to the cops and stuff why I got involved to try and stop this man beating up this woman in public. That happened to me. It's no joke. So, people don't step in when they see a man wailing on a woman in public. So, where's the safety of allowing your wife to walk down the road if she gets into an argument with a thief or something? No one's going to help. But let's move on to kidnapping. Okay, kidnapping is a big worry for me. Kidnapping is huge in China. Human trafficking is huge in China. And this is the thing that worries me the most. I personally have stopped a human trafficking child gang I don't know how to explain it really, but basically what they were doing was they were using a child, passing it around to these beggars on the Shenzhen metro and using it for sympathy, a drugged child that they'd have on their back and walk around begging for money. But they used the same child with multiple women. I took photos of the different women with the same child. I actually physically pulled one of them off after I knew it was the same child. I made sure I went home and I checked all the pictures. I pulled one of them physically off of the train, called the security guards, got the cops involved, gave them the photos, Bluetoothed the photos over to their phones, got them arrested, and a couple of weeks later I saw posters up in the Shenzhen metro saying do not ever give money to these kind of people. And they used the photos I had taken, which was very satisfying to me that I kind of put a stop to it. But these begging gangs that use children and they have disabled children and stuff, it's despicable. But the level of kidnapping is insane. The first time I got to experience this, I was in a shop called, well, it's a shopping mall.
Nice is not one place or thing. It's a mosaic, a global village, a pickup.
Called A Best Xingijia, and it was just underneath where I used to live. So I was there just buying some stuff, and this incredibly distraught middle-aged woman came running into the shop and just calling out the name of a child. And I looked around and I saw that nobody was helping her. She's literally running around the entire shop screaming at the top of her lungs for the name of this child. Nobody was helping her, so I tried my best. My Chinese was terrible at the time, but I tried to help her look for her child, and unfortunately we didn't find the child, and I certainly hope that she did later. I don't know what happened, but that was my first kind of glimpse into how quickly, children can get taken. And this happens in China more than you know. There are actual groups set up, like Bao Bao Hui Jia, things like this, to try and reunite kidnapped children with their families. The problem is that these kidnappers, they get a lot of money by selling these children to rural families that can't have children or need a son or whatever the case. So they will kidnap just random kids all around the country, and they've got these terrible networks where they smuggle them from the cities to the rural areas and sell them. So it's a very profitable business, and unfortunately it hurts a lot of people, and it's very hushed up. But I know it's a real thing. I've seen it with my own eyes, and of course you have all these organizations of people trying to, combat this terrible kidnapping scourge. It's a real thing. So for a little statistic, the park where C-Milk's daughter used to play in Huizhou, we later found out that there were 5 children kidnapped from that exact park just very recently, before he was allowing his daughter to go and play there, it just gives you an idea. And you don't find this out by looking at the news, or there's no CNN coming up there and saying like, 5 children kidnapped in this park, beware. No, you hear it from the other mothers that are hanging around the park there and stuff. They're the ones who have to tell you this because the news is so suppressed in China. So guys, what I'm getting at here, I could go on, and I have covered a lot of these things in my videos, but I want to just dispel this myth of this utopian safety of China, all right? I could say that about where I live right now. I can go to the park, it's beautiful, you got clean, awesome place for the kids to play. I see little children riding their bicycles, running around with not a care in the world, parents going there with their kids, lovely clean environment with good facilities, drinking water fountains, pristine, beautiful bathrooms. It's an incredibly awesome thing. And this is one of the main reasons I moved here, so that my child could grow up in a safe environment. I mean, the weather is fantastic. People are polite. All the services are running. Like I said, I could drink the tap water. And I could go on and try and pretend as if this is the most safe utopian place in the world. Of course, I know it's not. I know there are issues here. But in China, you don't know there are issues there because you're not allowed to know that those issues are there. And that is why you have this situation where I'm getting my subscribers contacting me saying their Chinese wife wants to take them and their kids back to China because they believe it's more safe there than in the USA because the USA is so dangerous right now. Guys, don't buy the bullshit. China, like everywhere else in the world, has crime, it has protests, it has arson, it has murders, it has kidnappings, it has all this other kind of crap that goes on. Also a very selective policing, and if you are a foreigner or if you are somebody from a rural area, you will get treated worse than someone who's connected and rich, etc. That's how China works. It's baked into the system. So guys, just stay safe no matter where you are. You could be in the middle of a BLM protest, or you could be in the middle of rural Sichuan. It doesn't matter. Just stay safe. Look after yourself, especially during this time. We should all be working together and helping each other, not trying to fight against each other and say, "Ooh, you're better than me, I'm better than you." It's not about that, guys. Wherever you are, make your peace, stick together, help each other out, and above all, stay awesome.